Good morning, everybody. I'm Tom Bracken. I'm the president of the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to the fifth in our series of webinars that we co-host with NJM Insurance Group. These webinars have looked at all the issues, many of the issues facing our small business community today. And the one we're going to discuss today, we hear almost every time we have a webinar or have a meeting. It's an issue that covers the entire state and companies of all size. It's the return to office conundrum that we are still grappling with after 3 years of COVID being somewhat over, I guess is the right term. But today's discussion will talk about strategies employers are using to deal with this dilemma. The issue of do we bring everybody back? Do we do it part-time? Do we have a hybrid system? Do we leave them at home? It's all over the map, and our experts today will talk about those issues. So during the conversation, if you do have questions, please put your questions into our chat box. We will get to them as time allows. And I want to thank specifically our sponsor today, NJM Insurance Group, who has partnered with us on all these webinars. They've been a great corporate partner of us. They've been a great corporate citizen of the state of New Jersey, and we've enjoyed working with them over the last couple of years with all the webinars that we put on. It is now my pleasure to introduce Pam Razik, who is the Senior HR Business Partner at NJM. And unfortunately, Pam is having some technical difficulties, so she will be on audio. But Pam, it's all yours.
All right, well, thank you, Tom, and thank you for the kind words about NJM. Glad to be here. And good morning, I'm Pamela Rosick, Senior Human Resources Business Partner for NJM Insurance Group. NJM Insurance is pleased to be the exclusive sponsor of the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce's Small Business Webinar Series. This morning's webinar on the return to office conundrum is an issue that many employers are dealing with, and I'll be handling this off to our panel shortly. I want to thank the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to briefly speak with you today. The New Jersey Chamber has been an essential voice for Garden State businesses for more than a century and a vocal advocate in the corridors of the Capitol and Trenton. NJM has been helping small businesses meet their insurance needs since 1913. We've been the largest writer of workers' compensation insurance in New Jersey for more than 70 years. We're also a leading provider of commercial auto insurance. We wrote those two, and only those two, lines of business for the better part of a century. However, we've added new products to better serve our policyholders and potential new customers. We expanded our footprint at the same time. NJM is now a leading regional insurer serving business customers in Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania, and of course, New Jersey. Our NJM Pro Edge Business Owners Policy, which combines protection for common property and liability risk designed for smaller businesses. The NJM Pro Pack Commercial Package Policy protects mid to large-sized businesses against property and liability risks. NJM business policyholders receive the highest level of service, including access to our nationally recognized claims service and certified loss prevention specialists. This focus on safety, long an NJM hallmark, helps business owners identify and correct workplace hazards before accidents occur. And if an injury should happen, our claims and medical services professionals work to mitigate losses and contain claim costs. We take pride in aligning the right coverage for our policyholders, providing an outstanding customer experience, and sharing profits in the form of dividends. We want to help our policyholders grow and in turn grow with them. If you're not an NJM business customer, I encourage you to visit njm.com to review our agent directory, get a free quote, or contact us with any questions. Now it is my pleasure to turn the proceedings over to Tom Bracken, who will moderate today's panel. Tom?
Pam, thank you very much. And also thank you, NJM, for its continuing support of our webinar series. It is now my pleasure to introduce our three product experts who will be the panelists for today's discussion. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about why they are a product expert on this topic. I will do it in alphabetical order. So first is Jeff Axelbank. Jeff?
Hi, everyone. I'm glad you're all here. I'm an organizational psychologist. Many people don't know what that is exactly, so I'll help a little bit. I work with companies to help them develop high-performing teams, including leadership teams, involving stakeholders in strategic planning, addressing high turnover, morale, and burnout issues, conflict resolution, and executive coaching. And you may notice that the question of return to work sort of impacts all of those things. And so that's why I'm here, hoping to lend my expertise to this topic.
Yep, thank you. Next, we have Sara Grauch. Sara?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sara Grauch. I am with EY's America's Assurance Talent Team. I'm a director, the strategic talent leader for the assurance business. And my experience at EY has been over about 23 years, mostly and really all in the talent space, but most recently focused on employee engagement and various programs that impact our retention. So most recently, actually following COVID or during COVID, I was very involved in the return to office protocols, which we call EY way of working. And we'll talk a little bit about that soon. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sara. Our third panelist is Patricia Prezioso. Patricia?
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here with you today. So I have been practicing law for over 30 years. I am a partner at Sills, Cummis, and Grauch, which is a law firm that's based in Newark, New Jersey. I am the head of the Employment and Labor Department. And what we do, what my team and I do all day, every day, is support business owners, HR specialists, and we represent management side only in employment disputes brought up by employees. We provide HR support, policy development, employee agreement development, and we do internal investigations. So I look forward to this discussion.
Great. Thank you, Patricia. So let's get to the topic. It has been almost 3 years since companies returned to work after COVID. Why are we still talking about this issue?
I think people got the bug. They realized that actually some work could be done from home, and maybe it surprised a lot of people, but I think it got contagious. People started talking about it, and I'm one of the things we're not going back to pre-COVID times.
Mm-hmm.
I think our workforce has really evolved too, and there are expectations that there's a little bit more of what's a perceived balance in professional and personal life. I know it's difficult to actually have a balance because it's difficult to disconnect when you're working from home. At least I find that myself. But I think also during COVID, what we are seeing at EY is that our people got used to working from home, being able to have dinner with their family at an earlier hour. They got pets during COVID, and so leaving them at home while they're at the office has become really difficult. We've also seen commuting costs go up, right? Gas has gone up, parking has gone up in various cities. You know, we at EY, we have almost 80 offices across the US. And so we have really seen that costs for parking have gone up too. So that has, you know, that's also sort of the conundrum, I guess, to use that word.
Mm-hmm.
I think the balance that Sara just mentioned has become really, really important. And that's not the only balance that has to be measured when we're talking about remote work, because businesses obviously have to figure out what's feasible for them, what makes their business successful, what are their needs, and recognize that for talent retention, remote capabilities has become very common for talent in evaluating where they want to work, as much as how much vacation time they get, what benefits are offered. and whether they have the flexibility to work remotely. So it's a struggle that continues to evolve. And, we're certainly still discussing it today, and I suspect will be for a long time to come.
The thing that is kind of a very big issue for me is prior to COVID, everybody was open 5 days a week. People came to work 5 days a week, and if people didn't come to work and they, quote, wanted to work from home for a day, that was seen as a huge negative. I mean, I think that's that's a fair statement. Now, after COVID, it's the complete opposite. So, but here's a question I would have of all of you. Do you see the people who want to work from home? Is there an age factor involved with the ones that want to work from home versus the ones who would prefer coming into the office?
I mean, I think the answer to that is that it's all over the map. And I think maybe going back to the other question, why are we still talking about it, is because we don't really know yet. This has been an incredible opportunity to do research and sort of live experiment. But the results have been all over the map. Some of the results have said that productivity increased. Some say that productivity went down. And I think the stereotype is that younger people want to work from home. But I know, talking to some young people, they want to be in the office, socializing, career advancement. And so I don't think there's any generalizations that can be made, really. I'm curious what you all think. Yeah.
And at EY, the majority of our workforce, over 70%, is 30 and under. And so I would agree with you, Jeff. I really do think it is all over the map, because we have, folks who are younger, again, who maybe don't have a family yet, and who got pets again during COVID, and who want to stay home with them or don't want to leave them. Then we also have more senior people who have children and they want to be home for them too. So we do see it all over the map. What we really try to reinforce at EY is what's in it for me, and what's in it. We have a hybrid model that we push. We don't have a return to office policy. We have an approach that you have meaningful and deliberate conversations with your team. We're completely a team environment at EY. And we come together in person when it makes sense, and those are purposeful conversations. And we come together when there's a meeting, or there's a reason, there's a key area of a project that we're working together. But we generally ask people to target 2 to 3 days a week. And so those folks, what we try to reinforce is the growth. Jeff, you mentioned it, the on-the-job coaching that's achieved, stronger loyalty and connections that are achieved when you are in person, which ultimately drives higher employee engagement and retention as well. Because when you're more loyal to someone, you're more likely to stay. And conversely, when you don't see people, out of sight, out of mind, it's a lot easier to leave an organization when there's no loyalty there.
Patricia, any comment?
I agree. I agree with Jeff and Sarah. It is all over the map. And I would just remind employers, and I'll be doing these reminders throughout. It's not as easy as just deciding, are we working from home or are we coming into the office? New Jersey is a highly regulated environment. So things like age can't enter into your policies for remote work. That would be discriminatory. Mm-hmm. So, but it is all over the map. And I know I have adult children, and I could tell you that I could have spared myself the hour and a half I spent on Route 80 this morning getting to work had I been remote today. And I know by Thursday, because I'm in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm looking forward to working at home on Friday. And my husband, love him as much as I do, on Tuesday mornings, I'm looking forward to getting into my car and coming into the office. So, there are those who during the pandemic felt like we weren't really working from home, but we were living at work, which was serious. And, at the same time, I do enjoy the flexibility, and I'm an older employee, so I think it is truly all over the map.
So let's talk about the cultural aspect of companies, team building and collaboration. In the pre-COVID days, with people in the office, you'd meet around the water cooler, you'd talk, you'd have informal meetings, you'd stop in to see people, you built relationships and friendships. That with the advent of a hybrid system or several days working from home, and many employees not being here the same days, that does put a dent in that. So please, each of you comment on that aspect of the remote situation.
My sense is that there are also ways of compensating if it's remote. During the height of COVID, when no one was in the office, I was consulting to one company that they established a lunchtime meet me in the kitchen Zoom room, and people could go and have lunch in the Zoom kitchen and socialize that way. They were there, and companies could set that kind of social opportunities up, but it's a real issue about how to do that. And I guess my sense is that part of why the results are all over the map is that different companies, different industries have different requirements and different cultures. Tech companies where everyone is just sitting around a computer screen coding may be a different situation from an engineering company where people have to really talk to one another and really work more in a teamwork kind of a way. And I think from my point of view, the most important thing is, rather than management imposing some kind of policy or rule, for really to get all of the stakeholders together talking about it, and thereby coming up with a system that can work for the most people and the company as well.
We really try to build camaraderie, through, you mentioned, Jeff, like meet me on Zoom, and it's generally, it's hard to really replicate that in-person connection, but we have lots of remote teams too that, are supporting clients remotely. And so I think that it's really reinforcing that we have to very deliberately come together, even virtually, and just have coffee chats, or if it's in person, in offices. Our office managing partners in our various offices are responsible for building camaraderie. And let's be honest, people come for food as well. If you feed them, they will come. So we also try to have lunch and learns and, pizza on Fridays, those types of things, to help kind of just continue that camaraderie that we had, before COVID. And I think that we've gotten close to it. We're definitely not there yet. It's more just about living differently in the office, I think. We're just going to, have to live with a different model than we did before. Because Tom, as you said, we were all in 5 days a week. And if you weren't in, you kind of got the side eye.
Exactly. Patricia, what about you?
Well, I'm always big on data points and collecting information and using that information to guide you. I look back over what I know employers went through since the pandemic. And, in 2020, 2021, we all heard about the Great Resignation. In this country, we had more people than ever in our history before who changed jobs. And there were many people who thought that was because we just went through a period where virtually everybody was working remotely, except, I know there were certain industries that couldn't, like manufacturing, but it led to a lot of job change. And I think that's a big data point for everybody, because there were a lot of people who, just as Sara said, they weren't coming in, they weren't connecting with their colleagues. I could tell you personally, I know as head of the department here at Sills, I interact with the junior attorneys much more on the days that I'm in. And it's more questions that I'm passing them in the hallway and they're asking me a question. There are natural touch points that go beyond, scheduling those Zoom calls or opening up a Zoom hour for chat, which is all great. And it's good to know that we can do it if we have to, but it's still, for business owners and management, you really have to figure out what works for your business. But I always recommend to my clients, try to put those views that we used to have historically about needing to be in the office in order to work hard aside, and really look at what has worked for you over the last 2 years. Have you retained your talent? Do exit interviews, find out why people are leaving, and see, is it related to remote work or not? Because I could tell you, I have clients that are fully remote and still have problems with retention. So it's not all or nothing, but people who are running businesses today really do need to assess and consider this huge benefit, because the happy employee is a productive one. And your employees, for most businesses, if not close to all, your employees are your biggest assets. So encouraging them to be happy, as long as it's in line with your business goals and needs, is a great thing.
So one of the groups that I think has been disadvantaged by this situation are interns and new hires, who, when I was a newly hired analyst in the banking business, I learned a lot from just tagging along with people, sitting with people, watching people, listening to people. That educational piece is invaluable. Even though being in a couple days a week, you get some of that, you don't get all of it. So how do you all feel about making up the gap for those young people to get them the full benefit of onboarding that they would have gotten if they were in 5 days a week, by the fact that they're only in 2 or 3 days a week?
This is something at EY that we really struggled with, especially during the pandemic when we were onboarding people, because we have very large classes coming in at a regular cadence. So in a given office, we could have 60 people, 60 interns or 60 new hires coming in the fall of a given year, or in the summer of a given year, or in January, depending on when that business is bringing them in. And what we have found with remote learning is that, just through studies, is that there isn't a different level of learning that takes place, or there isn't a different level of the knowledge that you take in, whether you're remote or whether you're in person. In fact, some of our data from our learning team has found that if you're in person, you may even be a little bit more distracted. That said, what we continue to hear from our people is that in-person learning and the camaraderie that is built when you're being onboarded is a really significant impact when they're coming in, and it's building kind of their first impression of your organization. And really the brand of the organization is really, the tone is being set during that in-person learning. And they're building those connections right from the start. And I think we've said it a couple of times that those connections are really key. So really our go-to and our best practice or approach is in person when you first come on board for those, larger classes and those junior folks that need to build those connections.
Okay.
I'm thinking about the analogy.
Oops, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the analogy or the parallel to high school seniors looking for colleges. And, sometimes, they begin the process thinking they want to go to X college, and then they go there and they say, it just doesn't feel right, and they go to another place, and there's something that you get in the vibes that is, ineffable, really intangible, but it's real. And I think when you walk into a workplace, same kind of thing, you get a feel. I think, if it is a virtual workplace, there are maybe ways of combating that, but I don't think there can really be substitute for that.
I agree. Onboarding is very, very important to set the tone. Tom, to your point, I do think that there are a lot of employees who gain a lot just from observing and listening. And a lot of my clients have approached that, including my firm, as a matter of fact. We encourage everybody to be in on the same days. So we do have a hybrid model. And of course, if people want to be in 5 days a week, they can. But we are all here on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And that makes it easier because at least 3 days a week, the younger attorneys and staff are getting the feel of, our full firm. And there are a lot of my clients who have taken a similar approach. It's a little easier to monitor and train the new people when you're talking about overseeing them remotely and supporting them remotely 2 days a week. So it's something to think about.
So, Patricia, you just said basically your company philosophy is Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, everybody shows up. Sarah, at EY, do you have a firm policy like that, or are you more flexible?
More flexible. Well, I will say that we do see more people coming in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but our model is really, we'd like our people to target 40 to 60%, or about 2 to 3 days a week. We do not track it because it's very hard in a professional services client serving business to track it. Certainly if, we have badge in data, but it's irrelevant if you have people going to clients. So you don't know if they're, in person there. So, but yeah, it isn't a policy to be in specific days. And there might be teams coming in on Fridays too, as well. Just like Patty said, if people want to come in 5 days, they're certainly welcome to.
So the counter to that is that a lot of companies that I've heard of who are having their employees come in 3 days a week, they stagger it because they are looking to downsize their office space. And by staggering the times, they can use a hoteling concept versus having people have a designated office, which to me just is, it works really against the company culture. And it becomes a monetary thing as opposed to helping the employees, have camaraderie, friendships, blah, blah, blah. So just comment on the concept of using this as a tool to cut down on costs versus maybe what Patty's approach is, which I assume, Patty, because everybody's in on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, you haven't really cut down on the size of your office.
Well, I run my department. I don't run the full office, but I'm not aware of us trimming the size of our office, but we are also client services. Obviously, we're a law firm.
Uh-oh.
Patty, you froze up a little bit.
I can jump in while
Okay.
Patty comes back. So Tom, to your point, there isn't a deliberate approach in let's slash office space because we have, less people. Certainly we have a business to run. So if there is an office where there is not a critical mass, or if there isn't, client, or if there aren't clients in a particular region, then that would probably have to be examined. But because EY we're so large across the US, our offices are strategically placed where there is critical mass and where we need to serve clients. So I haven't seen that offices are closing rapidly because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's.
I'd want to reiterate what we've been saying, which is it kind of depends. It depends on the industry, it depends on the particular culture that some, I'm thinking about my clients, one is an architecture firm, and for these people, the hoteling idea is nothing new really, because if you're an architect, you sit with your computer screen surrounding you, you're working with a lot of software, and it doesn't really matter what workstation you're at, because you have access into the computer. You don't really need your own office, and they're kind of moving around anyway. So it kind of depends. So I think, again, it's incumbent on companies to look at their particular situation and talk with their particular employees. And it's also important for the employees to get what the business factors are, because I mean, I like to say, businesses need their employees to be happy, but also employees need their businesses to be successful. And if the business is not successful, that's not good for the employees either. And so people have to get out of their kind of polarized positions to learn about, the other side, get out of their silos and talk with one another and see the whole system, and thereby they can come up with what works for them. That architecture firm, they did that. They had a kind of a steering committee of people at all levels to come up with their policy. Sounds sort of similar to what EY is doing, according to what Sarah said. And their system was, they came up with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, everybody is expected to be in. Thursday is a totally optional day. People can do whatever they want. And Fridays, they have to talk with their team and come up with a policy that their team determined which fit the team's needs at that moment.
Patty, you were cut off. Had you finished your thoughts before you had the IT difficulty?
I don't really.
I think she's frozen again.
Then you're back in the same box.
And this actually, she was talking earlier about, if I could work from home, I wouldn't have to spend an hour and a half on the road. But also, if you're in the office, you don't freeze when you're.
Sometimes there's tech issues, right? Doesn't mean because you're in the office, you're immune to technology issues.
Let me tell you one of the unintended consequences, I think, of remote work. And I see it, I've been to thousands of rubber chicken dinners in my career in New Jersey. And if you go to events now, galas, dinners, receptions, or whatever, the attendance is dramatically lower than it has been prior to COVID. And I've talked to people about that, and several people have said to me, hey, look, the event was on Tuesday night. Tuesday, I work from home. I'm not going to put on my suit and walk out and get all dressed up to go to the dinner that night because, I'm just comfortable finishing my day's work. So that to me has, it has many, many negative contexts to it. So just please give me your thoughts on any other unintended consequences outside of the office environment that you see being negatively impacted by this.
I never really thought about that, Tom, that kind of alumni events, dinners.
Yep.
In-person has dwindled, and
Yep.
it's because it was easier to go right from the office to these after work events.
In your uniform, in your office uniform, right?
That's right. Yeah. And at home, you're in your stretchy pants. And so, and it's harder to kind of, then pivot and get into your evening wear. So I think that that's absolutely an unintended consequence. And I think going back to what's the best way to get people back to those types of events are the what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Because I think our younger generation that I had referred to earlier, that makes up the majority of our organization is we have to share with them what will they achieve and what will they gain from being in person at not only in the office, but at these types of events. And it's networking, it's career, opportunities that open the door. Patty, you mentioned the benefits of just running into someone in the office and the conversations, the unintended conversations that happen when you're running into someone at the office and the networking that is built there. And so I think it's the continued reinforcement of the what's in it for me all around for even the non-work events.
New Jersey is a state that is built on networking. It's a small state. Events are easily accessible because you might have to drive an hour, but you might have to drive 10 minutes. And the networking aspect of the events in New Jersey were invaluable to me in my career. That's why this aspect of the unintended consequence, I think, is a huge blow to developing relationships, and business is all about relationships. So to me, that's a problem that probably is not going to go away, but you know, it was better in the quote old days than now. So let me have each of your opinions on, if you probably all talked to many companies about what they're doing. Have you come up with sort of a consensus model that seems to be working for the majority of the people you're talking about? Jeff, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's two levels to your answer. I don't think there's any consensus about the solution, but in my eyes, there's a consensus about the process to get to the solution, which is, I like to say, you know, sometimes management tries, you know, comes up with a solution and then they have to sell the solution to their employees or their teams. I encourage them to sell the problem and get the employees to help solve it. So for me, the consensus is, you know, let's put before our teams what is the problem. The problem is we have to come up with a solution. Let's do that together. So for me, the consensus is the process, not so much what the solution is, because the solution is so dependent on the individual circumstance, the industry, the size of the company, the rental situation, you know, property, parking, you know, there's so many different variables. So yeah.
Okay. Patty?
I don't think there is a cookie cutter approach. You know, we advise our clients, really take a look at your company, take a look at the roles within your company, which roles can thrive remotely or partially remotely, which can't. At the end of the day, it's management needs to decide based on data and information and not on historic views of what was good work ethic, and decide what can the company handle. And I really try to encourage those of my clients that are having trouble with talent retention to really delve in and find out, is the remote or office facing work influencing whether talent is retained or not. And then it's developing what the approach will be and what's best for your business. You know, there are some businesses that tend to be busier on certain days of the week. There are certain businesses where their clientele, their customers expect, you know, an office presence. And that's something that a lawyer can't evaluate. That really has to come from the business owner and the business itself. And then it's evaluating the risks. You know, there's a lot more when you were talking about unintended consequences, Tom. You know, you can have remote workers that are working in a different state than where your business is located. Well, in 9 states in this country right now, soon to be 10, because Michigan is getting ready to pass a law, they will not enforce an employment agreement that's based on New Jersey law. They believe that anybody who's working every day on soil that's located in their state is subject to their home state law. So you need to consider, what is your data protection? Are they accessing data remotely that you have to be concerned about because you have confidentiality agreements? Do you have to worry about non-competes, non-solicits being enforced? For those employees that are not overtime exempt according to law, how are you tracking their time? Because when we all went remote emergently during the pandemic, we weren't thinking about those things right away. We were thinking about survival. And now we're seeing the litigation that's coming from that, where there are employees who are claiming, you know, I wasn't working 9 to 5, I was working 9 to 7, and I want to be compensated for those hours. I deserve overtime. And there are a lot of policies that are and laws that have to meet in order for your policy to be successful.
Okay.
So it is a lot to think about.
Sarah, any comment on this?
Yeah, and building on what Jeff said and including the individuals in the process, and also building on what Patty said, that there is not a one size fits all. At EY, we are doing our hybrid model is pretty similar to our competitors, to not only the other big four, but also to the second tier firms that, hybrid for professional services. Without a specific mandate of it's got to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I haven't heard of that, but supporting some of Jeff's comments, we have various surveys that we've used that capture how often we ask people in the survey, how often or what percentage have you been in person versus remote. And what we are, and these are part of employee engagement surveys, and what we found is that our people are really more highly engaged when they are hybrid, because they have a stronger sense of well-being, they have a stronger sense of team culture, there's stronger communication and stronger on-the-job coaching. And we know that on-the-job coaching leads to stronger performance. At least it does in our organization, because we're very much a team oriented. So you are basically training for future leaders. So we've really landed on hybrid, and we've used data to support that model.
So Patty, you have a 3-day a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday policy. What do you do with people who don't, who violate that 3-day a week mandate?
Well, I can't say what's done all over the firm. I can only say in my department, we do give our employees a good deal of flexibility, and we try to make being in the office a very positive experience. And we value mentoring, and I could tell you as a senior lawyer, the quality of my life and the ease at work is better when we have better trained younger lawyers who are supporting us, or junior lawyers, I should say. I should know better than that as an employment lawyer. But we try to make it that way. There may be departments that prefer other days a week and are managed differently. But part of having and encouraging everybody to come in on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday goes to something you said, Tom, about networking. There are companies, even if you have 30 employees, if those 30 employees are located in 2 different departments, you have to wonder, are the departments mixing it up? Are we becoming more siloed through the remote work? And, because we're not in 5 days a week, missing out on that. Now, I don't say that as a proponent of being in 5 days a week. I'm a proponent of management looking at what works for the business and being inclusive for what your employees' needs and wants are, and seeing if there's a way to marry them. There won't always be, but you would be surprised how efforts by management to make an employee's life a little better balanced and have a little more flexibility really does bring up the engagement and the loyalty and the attachment. So it truly is worth this analysis and worth thought, and realizing companies could try an approach. And if the approach doesn't work, management can be flexible and you could adjust it. You need to make your business survive. You need to make it work for your business. But again, encouraging those important employee assets to be happy and productive is worth the effort.
Sarah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I have a question for my other 2 panelists here. I was recently looking at a survey of the research results, and we were talking about age, but there's also gender is an important factor. And what I've read is that remote work has been helpful to working mothers, but has been a detriment to women in terms of career advancement. That for some reason, which we could probably talk about for a long time, why that might be, but when men work remotely, their careers are not hindered as much as women women's careers are hindered by working remotely. And I'm curious what you both, have seen, or what your thoughts are about that.
I think I've heard that stereotype. I'm not sure I've seen the data to support that. But I think that because of our model, and because the model of, teams need to discuss when they're going to be in the office very deliberately. We have women leading teams too. So, they're asked to do the same as men. And so I wouldn't say that there's either limited opportunities, not that you're saying that, but I think that, at EY, we obviously are significantly invested in DEI. And so we ensure that, try to ensure that that's not happening for sure, or those stereotypes are kind of put to bed.
We could have a whole separate topic on this truly, and women advancing. But one thing that's important, and it goes back to Tom's comment, networking is really important. And maybe another topic that could be considered for the future is how to really be present when you're remote. There are ways, but it takes more effort. And I think that those that make the effort, and that doesn't mean if you're working remotely that you don't go to in-person events. I think everyone is responsible for their own career, and being out there and networking and meeting the people you need to meet. So I can't really comment, Jeff. I can't say I've seen it personally, but I don't know that we've had enough years of data since remote work has become more common to really explain that.
Yeah.
Scott, I know we have a few questions in the chat box. You want to bring those up to the attention of the panelists, please?
Yes, we do. Thanks, Tom. You covered one. Here's another one. What's the best way to educate employers who now want employees back in 5 days a week that they are making it harder to attract great talent, and that they are hurting their competitiveness in the marketplace?
I think the best way is to have a conversation with your employees and to set up a structure for that conversation so that people will feel free to be honest. That's another challenge in those conversations, to bring a sense of psychological safety.
Right.
And there are ways of doing that. That's my business, really, to do that.
If an organization feels really strongly about having people in 5 days a week, and that's what works for that business, I would encourage that business to reflect on why 5 days a week is most meaningful for them, and what are they actually achieving by having folks in 5 days a week. And then really that becomes part of the employee value proposition, and they're part of the conversation, like Jeff had said. What's in it for me? What's in it for our business? How are you helping achieve our business priorities by being in 5 days a week? As opposed to not commenting on that, because if it's simply sort of an empty expectation, I think it won't be received as well. There needs to be something behind it. Just like has to be something behind hybrid, or something behind the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Just think it, has to be sort of explained. What's in it for our business? What's in it for me?
Yes, the communication with your employees is really key. And I agree with Sarah. There are some businesses that thrive being in 5 days a week. I have one particular client who I was on site with recently, and you could feel the excitement on site. They have a lot of hard charging type A employees, and they don't have retention issues. They're doing great. So there is no cookie cutter approach. I think the question, needs a little bit of unpacking, because there are a lot of talented employees. Not every talented employee is a good fit for any particular business. And a lot of what we're talking about is company culture. And at the end of the day, you want to develop your company culture, and you want your employees to join in with it and embrace it and become part of it. And if that culture is 5 days a week or 3 days a week or 0 days a week, whatever it is, you want to make it work for you. And I think employers who are struggling to get talent after they're doing interviews for 90 days and they still don't have quality candidates, that's a great way to educate them to say, what do we do to cast the net broader? Why are we not getting the employees that we want in? And sometimes it's that sort of trial and error. And I know there's a lot of human resource people, who personally are my heroes. They work very hard every day. And, that tension between trying to bring in from the outside and making management feel happy and satisfied with the work environment that's being created sometimes is tough. But I think, as with everything, time and experience does educate management. And I think we're still in that phase where that's happening, which is part of, why this conversation is important.
Got any other questions?
Yeah, let's hear the other questions.
One more. What is everyone doing about the extra IT equipment that is not being used at the office anymore?
Or maybe added to that, Scott, the extra cost of buying equipment for people to be able to use their homes as their office. Both sides of that question, I guess.
Yeah.
We've largely centralized some of our IT activities to some of the larger cities, and IT materials or accessories are available sort of if you call a hotline. So we haven't had a significant issue there. We are working towards, we have a hoteling model. Tom, you mentioned it earlier that a lot of organizations are moving in that direction. We have done that for eons at EY just because of the nature of our business, but a lot of our offices are moving to kind of what we call workplace of the future, where it's really the open concept. So nobody's getting an office, even the most senior folks, but the offices are intended to be more collaborative. And so that the IT, accessories, monitors are built in a way so that it is a more collaborative environment. I don't know if that answers the question. We don't have that issue as big anyway.
One thing that is so important that we have seen, prior to the pandemic, most of our litigation was discrimination, sexual harassment, retaliation. Since the pandemic, we have done an awful lot of trade secret litigation in our employment department, where we have employees who are taking sensitive data and bringing it to a competitor. So please, when you're assessing what to do with the IT that's in the field, please make sure you collect everything, including any USBs or devices. Everybody should be asking their employees on offboarding, have you returned all the data? Or is there anything outside of the business account that you need to collect? And, there's a lot of theories about why trade secret litigation has gone up, and including, do employees feel more secure and confident in their home environment to, stick in a USB or move data somewhere. So these are all important issues that should go part and parcel with the thought process for your remote work policy. And please don't be afraid to ask for help. We do these policies all the time, and I could tell you no two policies are exactly the same. But it's not an expensive proposition to get assistance with thinking it through. And because of the heavy regulations that we have in New Jersey, it really, getting help is a smart move.
Jeff, any comments?
I just wanted to go back to the retention thing, because I think we need to remember that remote versus in person is not the only factor on retention. And if you're having problems with retention, there's a whole host of other issues which may be involved.
Yeah. So we have 2 minutes left. So I'll go through like a lightning round here just to ask each of you to, the question would be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, are we still going to be where we are today? And is the very flexible hybrid system here to stay? So Patty, you want to kick that one off?
I think the hybrid system is here to stay. I think it's become part and parcel, like I said earlier, about benefits. And I think it's going to be evolving as we go forward because, you know, there will be new challenges. But I think, you know, whether you could have some sort of remote work at your business is a question that every business owner should be evaluating.
Okay. Sarah?
I think it's absolutely here to stay as our as the new generations coming up in colleges and universities. Really communicating through technology is just the way of the future. And so I think that really connects to being hybrid as well. So I think it's absolutely here to stay. I think that we're just going to adapt.
Yep.
Well, I have my crystal ball here. So little prop. We're not going back to 2019. I think that's pretty clear. But what it will actually look like, I don't know that we're going to, in 5 years, it's going to look like 2023 either. We don't really know, and I think it is going to evolve, but I'm not sure quite in what direction. I think people are going to be more and more creative and innovative in finding new ways. And there may be new technology also that, you know, we're on the cusp of, you know, AI influencing everything. That's another topic for another
topic, exactly.
webinar. But so we're not going back, but the future is a little fuzzy to me. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to look.
Well, I would agree with all three of you. What we have is here to stay. It'll probably morph into something a little different, but we're not going back to 2019. I think the unintended consequences to me that I've seen are kind of troubling, and probably the most unintended consequence that I feel negatively about or I'm disappointed with is when I visit a lot of companies. I did a lot in my banking career, and I do a lot now. And I used to love going into companies and walk in. The parking lot was full. You'd walk in, the receptionist greeted you. People were walking around. There was a vibrancy and an energy displayed in those companies that really was nice to be part of. Now you walk in, first of all, you have no trouble finding a parking space. Secondly, you walk into the office, maybe there's a receptionist, and you walk around and the offices are empty. Totally different vibe for me. And whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but I just don't think that bodes well for building company cultures and building camaraderie and a team. But that's just my opinion, and I'll leave it at that. I want to thank Jeff, Sarah, and Patty for your very good dialogue today on a very tough situation, very tough topic. I think people probably got some good pointers out of it, but also I think it's all up to the individual companies to deal with their situation on an individual basis. So thank you very much for being part of this as panelists. Thanks to NJM for sponsoring as they've done in every one of our other webinars. And thank you all for attending. And we hope to see you on our next webinar. Thank you and have a very good day.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone for coming.